What is up, y'all? UFC Shanghai just took place the other day. A bunch of expected favorites that walked away with the W, but there was a few underdogs there too that were absolutely massive. And today I want to go through a few of the winners, few of the losers, discuss some of the important matchups that I think need to be made now that we've had UFC Shanghai. Starting off with our main event winner, Johnny Walker, with the big upset over Chinese Minecraft Steve Zhang Yang. That was worth staying up at midnight until 3 a.m., till 4 a.m., 5 a.m. to watch that. That was absolutely ridiculous. As soon as Walker did that takedown on Chimaev, I looked over at my buddy and I like, hey, he thinks he's Chimaev or something? And then he just ends up on bottom position for like basically the full round, just loses the whole round. To his credit, though, that might have been kind of a smart play by accident, because he was able to not take too much damage on the ground, and as soon as he got out of the first round, Zhang Yang kind of looked like a fish out of water, and just a perfectly placed calf kick led right to his demise. Johnny Walker back in the win column after all this time, and somehow this dude's still ranked, but I'm not giving him a jump up the rankings. I mean, Johnny Walker let's not forget the kind of slide this man's been on. And Zhang Yang, he was a relatively solid prospect, but that was by light heavyweight standards, not like actually like, holy shit, this guy looks insane kind of standards. So I'm thinking, let's put him against another guy that's kind of dog shit. All right, these are two guys that I normally would never pick to win a fight. But now, with this matchup, you have to pick one of them. Alonzo Menifield. Boom. These guys are like 13 and 15 in the rankings. It's perfect. They're right next to each other. Both coming off of wins, but they're kind of questionable wins, So, it's a good... And off of prospects as well, because Menifield just took Umar Sai's O, and Walker just handed Zhang Yang's... I don't even know if it was his first loss in the UFC. Ming Yang wasn't undefeated, so I don't know. But they're both coming off of wins over rising prospects, and they're both dog shit themselves. So let's see who's the actual like dog shit gatekeeper. I think this will be a fun, goofy matchup. Moving on in the co-main, moving on, the loser, Zhang Yang. I don't know. He wasn't really like, this was kind of the matchup you would have wanted him to win to boost him up to the rankings. Now you kind of just look around, the general unranked area that's kind of close to that 15 spot. And I think a fun matchup for Zhang Yang would be Ion Cutelaba. You got a guy with a nice dense chin here, but also has a bit of a grappling game. So it's a solid test for Zhang Yang, even though I do think, as ridiculous as it might sound, I do think Ion Cutelaba is a step down from Johnny Walker. So even though he's got a ground game that could test Zhang, I mean, if you can't get past Ion's ground game, that tells me enough. So, I think it's a solid test for Zhang, a little bit easier than Johnny, but not, so easy that I just feel like I'm giving him an absolute layup. I think this could be a relatively interesting matchup on the prelims of Fight Night or something like that. Now, moving on in the co-main event, Aljamain Sterling puts on, a dominant performance. One-sided pretty much. I mean, we all kind of saw that coming. I kind of expected it to be a one-sided win for Aljo even before all the weight stuff seemed to happen with Ortega. But after that happened, I started to really I started to even consider the Aljo TKO. And in that second round, it looked like it was going to happen. That pissed me off, honestly, because I was like, dude, Ortega was literally whining about getting punched. I'm sorry, in most other contexts, you whine about a legal strike, that's you tapping out. That's a verbal tap out. But whatever. Ortega's iron chin manages to hold up again. That spinning back elbow did more damage to Aljo's elbow than it did to Ortega's face, which is crazy. But anyways, all of this to be said that That was a terrible performance. Aljo's not in line for a title shot right now. You've got Evloev, who he's already lost to and was already a number one contender anyways in front of him. And you've got Murphy, who just got that huge knockout over Pico. They're both above him, not only in rankings, but in terms of just general like favoritism. And yeah, I want to give him a title shot. So Aljo's going to need at least one more fight. And, you know, I actually kind of like Aljo. And he's been having a really tough strength of schedule lately. And there's a bit of a crybaby problem in the featherweight division right now that I think Aljo might be the perfect man to exterminate. Or this cockroach, actually. Yair Rodriguez. You want a title shot so bad? Beat a real UFC former champ, all right? Aljo's not very good at striking. You might be able to, you know, use your lankiness and your jiu-jitsu game to, like, give him some threat or some second thought going to the ground. Not at all, probably. I'm trying to convince Yair here, but I like this matchup because Yair will probably get finished, and then Aljo can be up there for a featherweight title shot, which is something that I would be interested to see. A Movsar rematch could be interesting. There's so many more matchups I would like to see with Aljo. You know, Arnold Allen could be good. I'm trying to remember who else is at the top of the division right now. I'm blanking, but I think you guys would agree with me. Aljo, most of the matchups you can make with him in that division right now are so much more interesting than the Yair matchups. And I think we can also just kind of generally agree we're a lot more sick of Yair than we are of Aljo. Now, moving along. Brian Ortega, the Eagle. I guess he seems like he got a lot more than his beak broken this time around. And look, credit to the guy for showing up, making it to the day and everything, despite everything he seemingly went through. But it's time. I don't know. I think the UFC has been like doing something to make this man stay at featherweight. Because I remember a few fights ago him saying he wanted to move up to lightweight. And then like he had the Lopez matchup, and that one kind of seemed a little forced on him. And then every other fight since the Lopez one has been kind of like, what? The situation, I don't know. It's been weird. The last few fights for Brian Ortega have all had very weird vibes in the build-ups and in the fight camps. But, I mean, I think now he's officially no longer a top 5 featherweight. It's time to get him out of there, dude. Like, let him move up to lightweight. He's starting to get up there in age too. Let's let him move on, you know? And I think a good introductory matchup for him now. You can't give him anyone too high. He's coming off of a few losses. He's not a top 5 featherweight. So I think a solid matchup for him that's still kind of high profile for a name like Ortega would be, well, let me tell you something, motherfucker. Would be Manny Moicano. Now, this would be a fun grappling matchup, lightweight division. This is a great fight to put on, you know, I think a main card, a pay-per-view main card, you know, like an opener or, you know, like I mean, this could be a fight night headliner too, honestly. I think this would be fun. You know, it's a guy kind of low in the rankings in the lightweight division. I mean, you know, they're both coming off of losses too. I was looking at some guys like Gamrot and Dariush, but those guys are probably looking to fight up a little bit more. Dariush matchup, I'm a little more considerate of, but I think the Moicano one's more fun and would be more entertaining overall. But honestly, Ortega versus Dariush, the more I think about it, might be a good little thud scrapper. So there's a few options for Ortega, but this is the one I'd probably go with for his introduction to the lightweight division. Next up, we've got Sergey Pavlovich managed to restore some order to the heavyweight division, finally putting a stop to Salsa Boy's fucking bum-ass win streak. I'm so happy. I'm so happy to get that pick wrong. That being said, Patient Pavlovich isn't it. That guy that was out there, he won, but he's not what I wanted to see. And I'm not ready. I see people, you know, matching him up with like, oh, give him the loser of Gone and Aspinall, or matching him up with like, you know, somebody from the Almeida Volkov matchup. But I mean, you know, you can't. I mean, I don't want to just throw him right back into another Volkov rematch, and I don't really want to see him in an Aspinall rematch either. You know, the Gone matchups and the Almeida matchups, those ones are all fine and dandy, but those fights are already kind of happening, and I want to, keep Pavlovich on a little bit more of a tighter schedule. He didn't take that much damage in this fight. And a matchup that I think is nice for him and that I think would really show like where he's at now, where his mentality is, where his physicality is, would be a matchup against Curtis Blades. Now, this would be a rematch, but you got to think about the position Curtis is in Division 2. He is also coming off a win, but I think he robbed Rizvan Kunyev in that fight. So it's not really a win in my opinion. So these are two guys that are kind of both not in great, look like they're in good spots in the position in the division, but the way they look in their fights is questionable. And I think this is a good way to weed one of them out, start getting one of them to let some new blood in. Not that there is much at heavyweight anyways, but it's something. And then the other guy can actually build off of one of the other's bigger name at this point. Now, the loser of the featured fight, Waldo Cortez Acosta, he actually ate the punches of Sergey Pavlovich really impressively. Now, I know it was Patient Pavlovich, who was not shown to have that same kind of power. Rosenstrike ate the punches, but, let's see what Waldo can do. Let's see what that chin can do. Boom. Give this a main event in Texas or something. Let's move on. I don't want to talk about Waldo any more than I have to. Charles Johnson. Boom, my guy. This was an absolute banger of a pick by me. I got it almost exactly right, except for the fact that instead of using the lessons from the Van fight to prevent himself from ever needing the knockout, he used the lessons from the Van fight to just knock him out earlier. But he did get cleaned up in that first round, but at least he only got cleaned up for one round and then got the knockout instead of getting cleaned for two and then getting the knockout. You understand? So he did do essentially what I thought he was going to do, just the execution was a little bit different. That being said, we got to stop playing with this guy, man. I mean, if it wasn't for the Temerov loss, who just popped for PEDs, he'd be on a 6-fight win streak now, over with some wins like Kavanaugh, Joshua Van. I mean, Temerov's not a bad win. I think there was somebody else on that list that was like a good name too. You got to stop playing with him. He should have gotten a much bigger boost than he got after beating Van, let alone after the fight that he won after that. You know what I mean? By that point, he was on a 4-fight win streak. He absolutely should have gotten a much bigger boost. So I'm not playing around. I'm going to give him a nice big jump up. And I think a really fun matchup for a striker like Charles Johnson would be Manel Kape. I think this would be a great fight. I think the trash talk between these guys would be unexpectedly fun and really make the build-up really enjoyable. This is the kind of flyweight fight I think goes on a pay-per-view main card. I think this one goes on an opener. Maybe not actually because of Kape, because he's disappointed before. But you could put it on you could be at like the main prelim for right before a pay-per-view or something like that. Or a co-main to a fight night. Something like that. But it's time we give Charles Johnson some respect. This dude is putting on crazy performances. He's getting crazy results. He's having fun fights. He's active on social media. It's time to give him a jump. I want to give him a boost. I think Manel Kape's a great fight for him. But really anybody up there towards that middle part of the division is really where I want him to jump to. Now, the man he knocked out, Loner Kavanaugh. Now, this man, he looked great in that first round. And that second round, I think, really just showed his inexperience. That was part of the reason why I picked Charles Johnson, is because I really thought he would just be so much smarter than him because of how much more experience he's had, what the fights that he's been through, the matchups he's had. And I think that's just exactly what showed. And, Loner, he's really good. He's really young. I think there's a lot of promise there. I just think Charles Johnson is one of those matchups that if you're not careful, he's going to get you. And he got a little overconfident. He had a moment. He had his hands down. His feet were together. And he got clipped. But I don't want Loner to lose too much steam. I want him to be able to rebuild. But I want him to keep having fun fights. And I want him to keep being able to be a very credible prospect. Part of the reason why I thought he was a very credible prospect before is because his wins in the UFC so far, even though they are close, Felipe Dos Santos and Jose Ochoa are not bad wins to have for your first and second fights, I mean, those are some pretty talented looking young guys to go against. So to get those W's is really impressive. And I want to give Loner another guy, and this guy should entertain him in the striking, so it could be a little dangerous because it gives the other guy a chance, but I think this could be a really fun matchup. It's a couple solid names, so if Loner can get this win, it'll get him back on track and back in the names of people. Or, sorry, back in, like, whatever, the win column. I think Kaya Sakura would be a fun matchup here. You know? He might be a little bit of a big flyweight for Loner, but he's not long and tall the way that Charles Johnson is. You know, he's just kind of big. And I feel like this, like Johnson versus Asakura was a matchup that I had wanted to see after Asakura had lost to Pantoja. But now that we've seen like kind of more of the actual level that Asakura is at, I think it's fair to say that putting him against someone like Johnson might not be the best idea, but I think someone like Loner might be a little bit nicer and a little more even of a matchup. I think this could be, you know, one of those types of flyweight fights that you hear the memes about of just random flyweights on the prelims going to absolute war. I think this could be a lot of fun. I know I'm kind of giving a lot of praise to Kaya Sakura, who hasn't shown much of anything to us in the UFC, but I want to believe in the idea still. And then finally, my last matchup that I have made right here is for Kyle Daukaus. Really surprising result in that fight. I always knew Michel Pereira was like pretty hit or miss. Like I thought he was going to win that fight pretty confidently, but like that's only because I think of so poorly of Kyle Daukaus. So it was a pretty solid performance from him. Maybe he's improved. Maybe this, you know, second go around will be something new. I don't really have much to say about him though. I just wanted to, you know, kind of acknowledge that performance that he had, the upset. I mean, it was very, you know, it was a very impressive performance, very good knockout. I think the matchup I have next for him here is Edmund Shabazian. I know he's fighting Andre Muniz shortly, but I think he'll win that matchup, and then I think this will be a good little unranked fight you can put on prelims or fight night. I don't really have much to say. I mostly wanted to acknowledge Daukaus' performance. You know, Pereira himself wasn't too far off from a ranking spot. You know, that was like top 25 guy there. So, you know, let's put him up there against somebody like Shabazian. And with that being said, thank you guys for watching. These were my matchups. What do you guys think of these matchups? Who would you guys match these fighters up with? What'd you think of the card? 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10. Didn't even wake up for it. What do we think? All right. Thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Stay violent.